All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Check out Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're doing our training camp preview unit by unit, and now we're going into the safeties. It's brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage. I'm doing my countdown of the top 10, my top 10 favorite New York Style Italian Sausage Company products, and we are on number 8. We're also on the 49ers secondary, most specifically their safeties. And let's talk a little bit about the safeties. I think this is going to be a very competitive situation. The 49ers have really found something in Talanoa Hufanga. Hufanga started off last year against the Chicago Bears, had a phenomenal day at Soldier Field in week 1, and rode that to an outstanding bust-out season. Then you got the veteran there in Tayshaun Gibson. You got a great special teamer in George Odom, who signed from Indianapolis, walked into the room and became a special team monster. You also have your top draft choice from April's draft, Jair Brown, who's very much thought to be kind of a leader in the making, very impressive young guy, 3rd-round pick out of Penn State. This guy can play the run, play the pass. There's a lot to be excited about there. And then the 49ers also have 2 converted corners backing up in Taylor Hawkins from San Diego State and Avery Young from Rutgers. Young is a guy that started as a corner, has a lot of experience at the corner, didn't run a good 40 time, but actually has some man-to-man mirroring skills. Hawkins, I thought, was in the best shape of his career when I saw him in minicamp. He was a corner at San Diego State that is converted to safety and is just kind of trying to find the right weight and the right speed to play at. He's got a lot of coverage ability, though, for a safety. And both those guys are really, really intriguing. Now, unfortunately for Taylor Hawkins and Avery Young, outside of an injury, they may be on the outside looking in. I expect the 49ers to keep 4 safeties. Hufanga, Gibson, Brown, and Odom are almost 100% likely to be those guys. But you've also got Avery Young, Taylor Hawkins, and don't forget Quantrez Knight, the UCLA second-year player's got a lot of ability, and he can play, both on the corner and at safety. So don't forget about Quantrez Knight. He's a guy to watch for this summer as well. So it's interesting. Let's talk about Jair Brown for a second. The Niners climbed to number 87 in the draft to draft this guy. He was the Rose Bowl defensive MVP against Utah. He just absolutely was dominant. And he's a really athletic player who's, a guy who's been very, very productive. Daniel Jeremiah had him as his number 1 safety in the entire draft. He ran 4.65. If he had run 4.45, he probably would have been a first-round pick. Instead, he runs 4.65, and the Niners get him at 87 overall. Now, he likely sits behind Tayshaun Gibson. Gibson's going to be 33. He's looking to recreate 2022. He was fantastic last year. You also have Miles Hartsfield from Ole Miss, who's a handpicked guy who's versatile and knows Steve Wilkes' system. You got Hufanga, who's now in his 3rd year at a USC, and he had a hot start last year. I mean, as I said, 4 interceptions in the first 9 games, and he became an all-pro player. So Hufanga's, really special. And then George Odom is arguably the NFL's best special teams cover man. He had 21 tackles last year. He's a very impressive player. So you've got, you really do have a number of talented players at that safety spot. And the 49ers, as I mentioned, had a league best 20 interceptions. They limited quarterbacks to an 82.7 passer rating, 6th lowest in the NFL. And Gibson, who's an 11-year veteran, was really in the middle of it all year. He had a team-high 5 interceptions. He signed late in the preseason, and Gibson really impressed throughout the year and eventually moved into the starting role at free safety. And the Niners, the year before had gotten 32 defensive PI calls. So it was good to see them kind of emerge with some young players. Hufanga, emerged as an all-pro player in just his 2nd season, and he really flourished next to Gibson. Now, if you love the cover 3, you can play Hufanga in the box and Gibson as the ball hawking center fielder, and those guys really play off of each other well. And now you add Jair Brown, who potentially can unseat Gibson. And there's just a lot to like here. I think the depth is talent. I'm going to give the Niners safeties a B plus because I think their safeties really have a lot of potential to be one of the best units on the team. When you really look at it, there's not a lot of weaknesses there. Now, there's not unbelievable depth, but it's still going to be a very competitive situation. Hafanga's all pro. Gibson's a veteran who is a leader and helps get the Niners defensive backs lined up correctly. And when you look at how young this secondary is, having a veteran like Tayshaun Gibson is a really nice thing to have. He can direct traffic. He can be the mature guy. He can show guys how hard they need to play, how hard they need to work, what it means to be a pro. I mean, losing Mosley and losing Jimmy Ward, you lost some alphas. So I thought the addition of Jair Brown was maybe one of the best moves of the offseason. This guy's a big-time playmaker, and he just loves to play the game. And he's a hitter, but he's also a cover guy. So I think Brown, it's just a matter of time before Brown steps in for Tayshaun Gibson at free safety. And then in Odom, you've got one of the best special teams, defensive backs in the entire league. He's a really, really good defensive back. And then you've got three young guys with cornerback skills who all have their physical limitations. Quantrez Knight, Avery Young, and Taylor Hawkins. But, they're exactly what you're looking for in backup safeties. The game's become a passing game. So you don't need those hulking 225-pound safeties that thump like linebackers. You just don't need that now. Now you need guys who can play coverage because you might need to play pass coverage 80% of the snaps at times in certain games. And the one thing about Quantrez Knight, what does he have? Experience at corner at UCLA. What does Avery Young have? Experience at corner at Rutgers. What does Taylor Hawkins have? Basically an entire career where he was a corner at San Diego State. So you've got four guys that are likely to make the roster. I only expect them to keep four safeties. Hufanga, Gibson, Brown, and Odom are the only guys that are guaranteed roster spots. They could theoretically keep a fifth safety, and it will be a three-way race between Taylor Hawkins, Avery Young, and Quantrez Knight. And they're three solid young players. They're not stars, but they're solid players. They can play pass coverage. So going to be a very interesting summer camp. One, to see how far Jair Brown has progressed in a short amount of time. And then can he challenge Tayshaun Gibson for the starter job? And then can those three, young converted corners into safeties, can any of them step up and actually win a roster spot? I think I'm going to say no, and that they're probably destined for practice squad. But you've got four really solid safeties, a really solid special teamer, a veteran, an all-pro player, and a third-round pick that you really like. So I'm going to give the Niners safeties overall a B plus. I really like the potential of the group, and I think this might be, one of the best units on the football team. I really believe that this is a unit that's going to be a unit that's going to be one that gets better and better and better throughout the course of the year. All right, that is our preview of the Niners secondary, brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage, my 8th favorite New York Style Italian Sausage product is the Louisiana Hot Links. Oh, you got to try the Hot Links. I'll tell you, though, if you're not into spicy, this is not for you. The Louisiana Hot Links are hot, but they are really, really good. And thanks to New York Style Italian Sausage for being a sponsor of the Krueg Show as well. All right, that does it for our 49er camp preview, looking at the 49er safeties. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, best barbecue in Northern California. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krueg Show on YouTube.